Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and welcome to the BoxHard Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Mikey Garcia.
Yo, it's your boy, the odd guy himself, Malik King Scotty.
Hi, I'm Charlie Edwards.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the BoxHard Podcast with my main man, Joey Coastman.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode 173 of the BoxHard Podcast. I'm your host Joey Coastman. I'm joined as always by the infamous Mr. Ayaz Sumra. Ayaz, how you doing?
I'm good, Joey. Yourself?
Very good, my friend. Very good. Right, let's get straight down to the review part of the show. We're going to start at the Main Street Armory in Rochester, New York, USA. One fight to mention actually over here, a real strange one. Dominic Wade, a man that you probably won't even remember. He took on Triple G. I believe it was in April 2016. So he hasn't boxed since then. It's his first fight back. So almost 3 years out the ring. He got in there with a guy called Martin Fidel Rios. Not a great fighter, 23-19 now with 4 draws. He went into the bout obviously with 1 loss less because he got knocked out in the first round by Dominic Wade, and to get him out in the first round was quite impressive. I mean, you know, he got knocked out by a few other guys, but it's usually like after the 6th round or even later than that. So he's also a man that went the distance with Jamie Cox in that crazy fight, I think it was, where they all had points deducted. There were head clashes and all sorts of things there. So quite a statement there really for Dominic Wade. He returned at 173 pounds. That could be a bit of a problem. Will he get back down to 160? I'm not quite sure. Moving out now to the Korakuen Hall in Tokyo, Japan. One fight to mention, former IBF world champion Kenichi Ogawa. It depends if you want to call him a world champion or not really, because it got took away straight away when he found his drugs test. 22 wins, 1 loss. He's now 23-1. A unanimous decision over 10 rounds against Roldan Udea, who's now 12 wins, 7 losses and 1 draw. Like I say, unanimous win there over 10 rounds for Ogawa. Moving out now though to the O2 Arena in Greenwich, London, United Kingdom. A couple of fights to mention here. This was a bill that I was at in person on Saturday night. We saw Scott Fitzgerald move to 12-0, a knockout in the 2nd round against journeyman Radoslav Mitev, who's now 12-46 with 2 draws. Mitev was down once in the first and then down and out in the second. Yeah, that was what it was. We saw Lawrence Okoli. I think it was the 3rd opponent they wanted. I think 2 opponents pulled out. He eventually got in there with Tamas Lodi, who now has a record of 20 wins, 12 losses and 2 draws. And Okoli now 11-0. It was the defense of his WBA Continental Cruiserweight title. Lodi was actually down twice in the 2nd round and twice in that 3rd round. Lawrence Okoli had his girlfriend sat ringside in the front row, and he actually came out to her song. Really seems quite bizarre. I mean, she's a rapper, and he came out to her song rather than Okoli's Out the Cage, which was pleasant and also a bit unpleasant, because I'm quite guilty of liking Okoli's Out the Cage. I quite like that tune. And he came out to this female rap song which she did, which I suppose is probably the first time in boxing that's ever happened. That is amazing. So yeah, that happened. Also, we saw Jake Bull take on Craig Richards. We will be speaking to Craig Richards later on in the show. We said it last week. We're going to speak to the winner, and we've delivered that for you. It was for the vacant WBA Continental Light Heavyweight title. Jake Bull was down once in the 1st round, once in the 2nd round, and once in the 3rd round. He did get back up all 3 times, to be fair to him, but he was stopped in that 3rd round. Like I say, Craig Richards just put it on him and the referee jumped in, so he forced a stoppage there. Richards, his record now 14-1, and Jake Bull 12-2. It's a bad loss for him to come back from, to be completely honest. There's not too much really to criticise from Craig Richards. I mean, I think he looked a little bit stiff in the 1st round. I mean, Jake actually looked loose, whereas sometimes I think he's looked quite stiff in the past. Craig did look really, really focused in that 1st round. Most of it was pretty much a bit of a jab fest. No one was really letting the hard shots and the backhands go. And then, like I say, a straight right. It was a little sharp one, straight down the pipe, a counter punch, and down went Bull. It wasn't a massive shot, but a round where I felt Craig did enough to win anyway, but certainly a 10-8 round with the knockdown. In the second round, again, it was a cagey start to the round, really, until the last sort of minute or so, in which Craig once again was able to drop Jake, and this time it was with a right hook to Jake Bull's body. Right after Bull got wobbled with a shot as well. It was kind of worrying at that stage, really, for Bull, and such an incredible and shocking performance at that point from Richards. And then in that third round, nothing was working for Jake Bull. He looked too afraid to commit. Richards dropped him again, and this time it was a straight right hand, and Jake Bull just didn't seem to know how to get out the way of Richards' straight right. And like I say, he was down again. He did get back up. Credit to him. He was brave, but the referee did let him carry on. He moved around the ring and was dancing around. He got on his bike. He tried to, keep away from the shots and try and regroup. But Craig cleverly cut off the ring and was able to force a stoppage. So a massive win there. And like I say, Jake Bull's in an awful place now. I really can't see him getting himself on any Matchroom shows again. I think they might even drop him. I know that sounds really, really harsh, but that's the way it is sometimes. Especially Matchroom, they don't really like to commit too much. They like to give all these guys these one-fight deals and stuff like that. It's going to be a real hard place to come back from now, this for Jake Bull, but fantastic stuff for Craig Spider Richards. Like I say, we'll be speaking to him later on in the show. Also on the bill, we got to see Felix Cash move to 11-0, and he also picked up the vacant Commonwealth middleweight title. His opponent, Rashid Abolaji, 11-5 now with one draw. He came in with a few flags with him, if I'm not mistaken. He had a fantastically, beautifully dressed corner. I mean, they were dressed in all sorts of beautiful colours, and the ring walk was better than his performance because, like I say, he was stopped in the first round. So fantastic there for Felix Cash, a big belt for him to pick up there. And moving up the card now for the final time, the main event here, we saw Sergio Garcia, 28-0, put his EBU European Super Welterweight title on the line against our very own Ted Cheeseman, 15-0. Somebody's O had to go. It ended up being a 12-round unanimous decision for Sergio Garcia. Straight away in the first round, we saw a big round from Sergio Garcia. It was an unbelievable pace that he set. He went to the body of Cheeseman and the head. The good work really did come from Garcia. His judge of distance was really, really impressive. I mean, he'd move back and avoid Cheeseman's shots. He was very, very good. It was a real good display from him. It was a clear round to score, a big round there for Garcia. In the second round, it was another clear round for Garcia. I mean, Cheeseman was walking through the shots, but clearly they were taking an effect, and it was worrying at that point to see what was going to happen. I mean, what was going to change from Ted Cheeseman? He just tried to completely walk through the shots of Garcia. The style matchup straight away from that second round looked awful for Cheeseman. It really did. I mean, everyone on the commentary team, by the way, I think it was Charlie Edwards, it was Dave Caldwell, it was Johnny Nelson, and perhaps one other, might have been Matthew Macklin, could be wrong. They all said Cheeseman within like 5 to 7 rounds. I think Eddie Hearn said a bit later on, but yeah, it was shocking. I mean, it was a big upset in those people's eyes. In the third round, once again, another Garcia round. He literally wasn't allowed to get into a rhythm, Ted. There was no head movement from him. He was just plodding forward, taking shots. He looked like he had a bit of blood under his nose in that third round, but yeah, Garcia wasn't slowing down at all. He was still setting such a high pace, and it was interesting at that point to see what he'd be like for the next few rounds. I didn't think he'd be able to keep up that much of a pace. In the fourth round, once again, another Garcia round. It was really more of the same from Garcia. Ted's left hook would work for him here and there, but he had to take about 4 shots to land it, so it wasn't the best plan. Round 5, another clear Garcia round. Round 6, Cheeseman would desperately throw a right-hand lead. He'd fall short and just get countered over the top. I mean, nothing was working. He was being totally outclassed after 6 rounds. In the 7th round, it was more of the same. In the 8th round, Ted Cheeseman, I mean, I've just got to say, he is a machine. I mean, I'm not sure how he had it left in him, but he actually upped the gears somehow in that 8th round, and he seemed to put it on Garcia, and Garcia did look wobbly here and there, but he's so fleet-footed that it was hard to see if he was actually hurt or not. But he took what Cheeseman had, and he dished out his own too, and it was the first round I actually gave to Ted, even though it was a little bit sympathetic, so I had it 7-1 after 8 in favour of the champion, the Spaniard, Garcia. And then in that 9th round, once again, another round for Garcia. Ted just kept his hands down. I mean, he was trying to avoid shots with his lateral movement, but he just kept taking jabs again and again and again, and Garcia had a real good jab as well, a real impressive jab. And in the 10th round, Garcia would just keep jabbing and move into his left and to Ted's right, obviously, and Ted would simply just follow him. He just was not cutting off the ring. He wouldn't throw a right hand to Garcia's body. He just kept head hunting, and Garcia, with his great head movement and his foot movement, he was able to keep away, and he made it look quite easy. I don't want to be cliche here, but it was a little bit like a Spanish matador and an English bulldog, if you like. I'm going to throw a double whammy in there. But, Garcia, to his credit, he did keep his left hand low, and maybe a right hand body shot from Ted Cheeseman wouldn't have always landed if he did try that, even though I wanted to see more body work from Ted Cheeseman, because that I think would have probably been better than just constantly headhunting. But Garcia would keep his elbow tucked in, and he would throw the jab from the hip. It was real hard to read. In that 11th round, Ted had a moment where he hit Garcia, and Garcia did look stunned, but he seemed to momentarily signal to his corner mid punch that he was all right. It was so weird. But anyways, Garcia, if he was hurt, he did end up getting his legs back under him, and he was able to box and win that round clearly once again. So 10-1 to Garcia. A bit of a boxing lesson at this point for Ted Cheeseman. I think the towel really could have came in, to be honest. It was interesting to see what the scorecards were going to be, because some people sat near me had it quite close, and I couldn't believe that. Like, we were almost arguing ringside. And then in the 12th and final round, it was a tough round, really. It could have gone either way. I mean, honestly, I gave it to Ted, I think, on sympathy, but 10-2 then, that means I had it finally, after everything, to Sergio Garcia. I did say it on last week's podcast that I hoped Cheeseman wouldn't get any favours done on the scorecards, and I mean, one of them, they really tried to do him a favour. I think one of the scorecards had it by 1 or 2 rounds, was it? Can't remember. It was really close, which is just terrible. I mean, people have bashed that scorecard on Twitter already, but I won't add to that. But there was some accurate scorecards. I think someone had it 11-1, one of the judges, so that's about right. And I had it 10-2, so a big upset there for Cheeseman. But like I say, listen, he tried to step up. He's still a young kid. He's still got a bright future. He's still a tough guy. He's still a British level fighter. He can still beat a lot of guys. And to be honest, even with his style, he could have overwhelmed, and he would have overwhelmed a lot of fighters that night. He's a fit, tough guy with a solid chin, and he will wear people down and end up stopping them late on. That's just the kind of style he's got. He's that kind of guy. But I think he needs to go back to his boxing, because he didn't try to box this guy here on Saturday night. Even if he did try and box, he may have come up short anyway, because the guy was a real good boxer, and I think they must have overlooked him. But yeah, it kind of deflates the potential Anthony Fowler fight down the line should Fowler beat Fitzgerald, which again's not a given. We can see that anything can happen in boxing, but yeah, for me, I think Ted Cheeseman probably fights the loser of that fight. But yeah, he's still got a British title, so the big fights can still get made, I guess. So perhaps maybe he doesn't get the loser, maybe he gets the winner, but his stocks drop just slightly, but I'm sure his experience goes on to another level, hopefully. So all the very best to Ted. Big fans of him on this podcast. Moving out now, though, to the final bill to mention at the Ford Center at the Star in Frisco, Texas, USA. 1 or 2 fights to mention over here. 4 fights in total. We saw Teofimo Lopez 11-0 move to 12-0, a KO in the 7th round of a scheduled 10 against Diego Magdaleno, who's now 31-3. It was for the vacant NABA USA lightweight title, the NABF lightweight title, and the USBA lightweight title. Teofimo Lopez, I mean, he just punches too hard, and he had Magdaleno in trouble at many points during the fight. They're talking about this Lomachenko fight already. I think we need to remember that Lopez is still 21 years of age. Even though what Lomachenko had now, I think he's had about 14 fights, something like that, and this guy has now had 12 fights, so they're close in terms of pro experience, but they're not really, because Lomachenko's fought the way better opposition, and Lomachenko's like, I forget how old he is. He's quite a bit older than this guy, and obviously he had the extensive amateur career, whereas Teofimo Lopez, I think he was a good amateur, but he didn't really win anything major, so I think he got beaten straight away in the Olympics in like the first round. Could be mistaken. I'm not massive on my amateur boxing, so please don't jump down my throat, but I think that's absolutely silly to put him in with Lomachenko this early, because he would lose in bad fashion, and I think it would be quite demoralising. I think it's a way to really wreck a prospect to throw him in there with Lomachenko. He's 21 years of age. He's still a kid. It's not the right time for him, even though he's really impressing. And like I say, he's got a great fighting style. He's a great talker. He's got a real bright future, and he's a real gem. He really is. I mean, Bob Arum's got a fantastic prospect on his hands there, but Lomachenko right now, no, not for me. I don't think so. In that second round, I forgot to mention, he literally uppercutted the snot out of Magdaleno's nose. It was an unbelievable performance. It was a massive step up for him when we look back. And, Magdaleno had only lost to world champions. Lopez, like I say, he is still a prospect. He's got the athleticism, he's got the power, he's got the reflexes, he's got fantastic punch picking. That's probably his best asset. He's got great speed and he's got swagger about him. And like I say, he can go a long way. Very, very fan-friendly style. He's got the good looks too. And another brutal knockout for him. One left hook followed by another left hook, and yet another KO of the year contender for him. And we're only a few weeks into 2019. I mean, he got a fantastic knockout at the back end of 2018. The way he threw the first shot, the first left hook, was reminiscent of Prince Nassim. The way he jumped in with the left hook, it was quite reminiscent of what the Prince used to do. Oh boy, if you're getting compared to the Prince, you must be doing something right. Also on the bill, we saw Oscar Valdez move to 25-0. He took on Carmine Tomason, who was 19-0. Somebody's O had to go. Of course, it wasn't Valdez's O. Tomason was down in the 4th round and in the 6th round and in the 7th round, where he was TKO'd in that 7th round. It was for Valdez's WBO World Featherweight title, his first fight since the war against our very own Scott Quigg. It was a bit of a slow start, really, from Valdez. In that 4th round, obviously, Tomason threw a combination himself, but while doing that, he left himself wide open, and Valdez landed a right hand, and down went Tomason. Like I say, that was the first knockdown. It wasn't a heavy shot. Tomason once again was down when he took a knee after taking a left hook to the body. I think there was 2 knockdowns, actually, in that 4th round, if I'm not mistaken. Round 6, Tomason again went down. I think it was a body shot, if I'm not mistaken. And then in the 7th round, that was, like I say, the last round. Tomason was down with the very first punch of the round that Valdez landed. It was a right uppercut, and that was all she wrote. So a decent win. It took Valdez a little bit longer than I expected going in, but a good win for him. We saw also on the bill Richard Commey, 28-2 now. He's the new IBF World Lightweight Champion. It's finally happened for him after a couple of dodgy decisions going against him. He took on Isa Shanayev, 13-1 now, 13-2, the Russian. Shanayev was down in the first round and twice in the second and final round. That's a brilliant thing there for Mr. Commey. A good fighter. I mean, it was a good first round, really. Both men were going at it from the first bell. It was a real exciting start to a world title fight, and Commey had to take a few big shots himself, but in that last 20 or so seconds, that's when he did drop Shanayev, and the power that Commey has is very real, and he hits very, very hard for a lightweight. Shanayev did get back up from that knockdown, but he did look wobbly, and he did manage to get through the remaining seconds. And like I say, he came out in the second round and he got dropped within the first 9 seconds, I believe it was. He did get back up on very unsteady legs, and Commey was able to pin him down, really, and drop him for the third and final time before the referee stepped in and concluded the action. So fantastic stuff for Commey. He's, I believe, Ghana's 9th or 10th ever world champion, so that's history making for him. And the top of the bill here, Alida Alvarez, 24-0, defending his WBO World Light Heavyweight title against Sergey Kovalev, former holder of the belt, 32-3 with 1 draw. It ended up being a unanimous decision over 12 rounds in favour of Kovalev. I backed Kovalev to win by knockout, but I said just a couple days before the fight, I said I've got a weird feeling, an unpopular opinion, that Kovalev's going to win on points. I wish I'd have put my money where my mouth was, or at least picked it on the prediction league. But yeah, it was what it was. It ended up being, like I say, a 12-round unanimous decision in favour of Mr. Kovalev. He regains his world title. The actual fight itself, though, in the first round, for me, it was a nothing round, really. I mean, Kovalev won it for me just slightly. Whenever Alvarez did throw, Kovalev would kind of backpedal to get well away from the shot. He clearly respected Alvarez's power, and Kovalev was the one pressing the action and coming forward in that first round. That's what I will say. That was encouraging for him. In the second round, it was a much clearer round in that second. Kovalev once again won that round. He was very methodical in there. He was thinking in there. He got off with some nice right hands, and Alvarez, aside from 1 or 2 nice jabs, he didn't have much success in that round. In the third round, another Kovalev round for me. Alvarez did try and bring it to Kovalev a little bit, but he still didn't do enough to win the round. The 4th and 5th rounds were pretty similar. I think Kovalev won I won't say pretty clearly, but he won the rounds fair and square. In the 6th round, Alvarez started well and seemed to stun Kovalev momentarily, but Kovalev definitely dominated the rest of the round with his activity, and Alvarez seemed to not really be doing enough. I mean, I'm guessing he was banking on Kovalev tiring, which happened in the first fight, but Kovalev obviously couldn't afford to do that here, and for me, he was in total control, 6 rounds to 0 after 6. Going into the second half of the fight, the 7th round for me was probably the closest round of the fight at that point. I still gave it to Kovalev though. He did seem like he was tiring, to be honest. I was wondering, could the tide be turning? In the 8th round, again another Kovalev round. In the 9th round, another round for Kovalev. Very confusing tactics from Alvarez. He looked to be the much fresher of the two in those later rounds, but he just didn't seem to go for it. There was no urgency in his work, and the rounds were just flying by. They really were. The 10th round, a big round for Kovalev. Excellent boxing display from him. He was even able to really knock back the head of Alvarez with some lovely left hands, and he certainly had Alvarez in trouble in that 10th. In the 11th round, I felt that round was actually a close round, but I sympathetically gave it to Alvarez, even though he fought in bursts. He did have bits and bits of success, and after he would have success, Kovalev, to his credit, would actually go on the attack and pretty much scribble over Alvarez's good work. He kind of, came back with his own success, Kovalev, but I sympathetically gave that round to Mr. Alvarez. And then in the 12th and final round, I gave it to Kovalev. I mean, he seemed to hurt Alvarez numerous times in that round. I don't think Alvarez left it all in the ring. That's obviously his problem, and that's very unfortunate for him. But Kovalev went out like a true champion in that final round, and he won it. And if there was going to be any closeness on the cards, that was that was a fantastic way really to end a good fight and a great performance. Now, one thing I will say is I had it 11-1. The commentators that I heard on the Box Nation feed were I think they had it. Well, they had it to Kovalev in the end, but they had it a lot closer than me. And they actually made me think that I was in the wrong. But when it went back to the studio and we saw Steve Bunsen, Barry Jones and Steve Lillis, they had it pretty much like I had it. They said it was like a shutout or 11-1 or 10-2, whatever. So my scorecard was pretty much in agreement with the likes of those guys, so that's good for me. That made me feel like I was on the ball. But yeah, I mean, just looking back at a few other little facts and stuff like that, Kovalev obviously blamed overtraining for the first defeat. He said he didn't feel good that day, and he said he had no energy, and he knew that if he didn't stop Alvarez in the first fight within 4 rounds, that he wouldn't be able to go the distance. And to be honest, I'm going to accept that. The amount of people that were so sure of Alvarez getting the knockout was really surprising for me. I mean, he only won probably 1 or 2 rounds in that first fight, and that was when he got the knockout. And this time he won 1 round. He actually won 1 round or 2 rounds at best. I mean, come on. They fought for 19 rounds now, all in all, and Kovalev's probably won about 16 or 17 of them. I mean, he did look very tired at the end of this fight here, and he really had to work for the win, but it was well deserved. He's back to the top. He's arguably the best light heavyweight in the world again. There's the likes of Dmitry Bivol, the likes of Artur Beterbiev and Alexander Gvozdyk. I'd like to see any of those fights or all of those fights, and he called for all those names in the ring afterwards. So for me, we've got to remember Andre Ward's gone, and Adonis Stevenson, unfortunately, has left boxing as well. So it leaves Kovalev. They were his only competitors before. He's proved more than all the other champions. He's got the best wins than all these other champions. So for me, he's right back at the top, even though it wasn't, a clear-cut, excellent display where he schooled the guy. He didn't. He looked to be in trouble with his stamina towards the later rounds. There were a few rocky moments here and there. He took a few big shots here and there. But yeah, him against Bivol, I'd love to see that fight. Him against Beterbiev, I'd love to see that fight. Real good fights, and certainly all Russian affairs there. Throw Anthony Yard in the mix should he get through his next fight. He's saying that Kovalev's only a temporary champion, so that is interesting words there. So yeah, some great fights down the line, and I'm excited and happy to see Sergey Kovalev regain his status as a proper, legit world champion. But that's about it for the review part of the show. Just before we wrap up part 1, the last thing to do, of course, is to welcome our very first guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the new WBA Continental Light Heavyweight Champion. It is, of course, Mr. Craig Richards. Craig, welcome back on the show.
Thank you.
It's good to have you back, man.
Glad to be back.
It's good to have you back. So, Craig, we said on last week's show, actually, that there was probably no real point in getting you or Jake on the podcast before the rescheduled fight, because we had you both on before the original fight date. I think we last spoke back in September. But we also said on last week's podcast that we'll just speak to the winner of the fight the following week. So here we are. You won the fight. How are you feeling at the moment, Craig? A new belt to add to the mantelpiece, obviously.
Hey, I feel good, I feel good. The fight was built up very high. The anticipation of the fight was high. A lot of pressure on the careers, and everything was on the line. So I came through convincingly. So I felt great.
And there was, of course, supposed to be this coin toss about who would walk first and all that business. Jake kept leaving quickly after all the media obligations and missing an opportunity to toss a coin. In the end, you obviously walked first. Did a coin toss ever take place in the end?
Yeah, it took place in the morning of the fight.
Okay.
So we won the coin toss, but I let him walk second.
What's the reason behind that? That's kind of strange, right?
Because I don't care about all of that stuff. So we said we'll take home corner and you can walk second.
Okay.
To us, it doesn't matter. We're going to get in the ring and we're going to fight the same way. I've done it before. My third fight walking first. It doesn't make a difference to me.
And the fight itself, have you had a chance to watch it back yet? I'm sure you have.
Yeah, I have only for the first time last night. I watched it back and, yeah, it was a good performance.
I've watched it twice, along with obviously seeing it live. Now, I was sat there ringside, and my only real criticism of you, if I'm being really harsh, I felt you looked quite stiff in the first round. And don't get me wrong, it could have just been how focused you were, but you did seem quite stiff, and he looked very loose, perhaps looser than usual. Would you agree, or am I being too harsh?
No, I think you're the first person in the world who said that. Everyone said it was the other way around. Everyone else said I looked really relaxed. Even the commentary said I was relaxed and he was a bit tense.
Okay. All right. The first knockdown obviously came in the first round. A nice, quick, short right-hand counter straight down the pipe. Was that encouraging for you, Craig? I know that you obviously expected to eventually knock him out, but to put him down in that first round surely must have been a little bit of a surprise for yourself.
I thought I was going to put him down the first three with that same shot. I said it to Peter the night before. I watched a couple of his old fights, and I saw that was one of his major errors, and I said, I'm going to catch him on a straight right, and I'm going to hurt him for the first three. I said, I'll probably put him down. Weren't sure of how much impact it would have if he would get up or how hurt he'd be, but I did realise, because I saw he was quite vulnerable to that shot. And, so I said, I'm going to land it, and we'll see how he responds to it.
And then, of course, the second knockdown was in that second round. It was a body shot. It didn't really look like you connected fully. I mean, don't get me wrong. It was still a good shot, obviously, but it didn't seem like a real rib-busting bang. Were you surprised he took a knee from that shot there?
Not at all, because you're seeing it too primary and too black and white. It wasn't a rib shot. I cut across his solar plex. I chopped the shot across the belly, so it winded him. I cut all the wind out of his stomach. I was surprised he got up, to be honest.
And then, of course, the final knockdown came in that third and final round, and that third knockdown of the fight, once again, was a straight right hand that put him down. He did get back up for the third time, and immediately got on his bike. And obviously, it took you about 30 or so seconds to eventually cut the ring off and just unload on
track him down.
Yeah, you did. And
I knew at some point he was going to run, and I worked on that in camp. I said that time and time again. I know he can do both. He can come forward and fight. So I prepared for that. How he ended up getting knocked down, and I prepared for him to run. So I saw his last fight against Marshinkin. He was on his bike, so I knew we worked on tracking the ring down. So when he got on his bike and thought he'd flee, I knew he weren't going anywhere.
Surely that marks the best win of your career, though, Craig.
100%, definitely 100%. Especially that everyone doubted me secretly. Everyone said he's going to be too big for you, too strong. His pedigree, his GB pedigree, and all this and that. It's going to be too much. You won't be able to outbox him. His jab's too much. His combinations, his hand speed's too fast. I heard it all. And I went out, I outboxed him, beat him to the punch. Too strong for him. and I bullied him. I done everything everyone says that he was going to do to me. He said to me, "Don't run," and we saw what happened.
We certainly did. And like I say, obviously you mentioned there you were the underdog going into the fight. Looking back, Craig, was that fair? Can you understand why he'd be a favourite? Obviously, being a big light heavy, being a 6'4" southpaw puncher, you've obviously had to move up in weight. I would argue. Don't shout at me here, but I'd argue he probably had a couple of more standout wins than you did, perhaps. Not to mention he had the worst loss of the two. That's obviously clear. But can you understand why he'd have been a favourite? Was that fair?
I wouldn't say he was the favourite for his standout wins, but I would say he's more the favourite for loads of other reasons. I can completely understand him being a favourite, 110%. He's the bigger guy. He's got a bigger amateur pedigree. He's got the bigger, he had the bigger pedigree. He's a bigger guy. He's got a bigger knockout ratio. He's ranked above me, and he was the champion. So why wouldn't he not be the favourite?
Agreed 100%. Now, one thing that shocked me when I watched it back on TV, I didn't notice it so much when I was watching it, from a couple rows back. And like I say, I've watched it twice, back to back, at home, is you looked much taller than he did. Now, I know that obviously he's got a bit of a crouch to him. He likes to stay kind of compact. He doesn't really stand tall for his height. But you're the total opposite. I mean, you stand tall. And honestly, watching it back, if he's 6'4", you looked about 6'8". Are you sure you're 6'1", Craig?
I'm not 6'1", it's BoxRec. I just leave them to leave it there. I don't know where they got 6'1" from. But I like the fact they think I'm 6'1". I don't know whoever read that. But I was like 6'1" like 10 years ago. But I like it because everyone thinks I'm shorter than I am.
Oh gosh, we'll let the real height remain a mystery.
I don't know where BoxRec gets some of their information from.
I think no one seems to know the answer to that. Your sister was obviously there in attendance, Craig, and I just want to say, I mean, she counts for about 100 fans. I mean, what a supporter! I overheard her talking to someone just a couple minutes before you walked to the ring, and she was real nervous. She was saying how apparently a member of Jake's team had told her, like, your brother's getting knocked out, and I think it kind of only fired her up because she was screaming advice out. She was screaming abuse to Jake the whole fight. It just seemed to work so well. She's a real supporter, man.
It just gets personal because on social media they was disrespecting me. My supporters disrespected him at times, and it was more than just me and Jake fighting. It was a build-up. Their families, my family was getting involved. My supporters, their supporters, and it got really personal outside of boxing. Even you heard it kicked off a bit at the weigh-in with them all, and it was more than me winning or Jake winning. It was our lot winning or their lot winning. It become a division and teams, and people got in the middle of things, and there was people, mutuals of us, who got into awkward situations because people wanted them to pick a side. And I personally, for everyone who was in the middle, just didn't really want to put anyone in that position. Because I thought me and Jake was fighting. I didn't really want everyone else getting involved, but it was a personal situation, so everyone was really passionate about it, and a lot of my people knew what I went through with all the pullouts and stuff like that, and stalemating my career and stuff like that. So it got a bit more than just a boxing fight for everyone.
And to kind of put all that to bed, one thing about you, Craig, is that you're so humble, and everyone saw that in that post-fight interview. You showed pure class in what you said. You asked for people to not really get on Jake's back, and that losing a fight doesn't necessarily mean he's a bad fighter. And I just wanted to basically applaud that, because that was your moment in the spotlight with emotions running high. You could have said anything. You could have called people out. You could have started telling people that your right hand can send people to the moon, but you took that moment to say those kind words, and I felt that was class from you there, Craig, to kind of put that rivalry to bed on a good note.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, I could have kicked him out while he's down. I said I was going to do all this. He said he was going to do all that, and I'd done what I said I was going to do. I could take the moment and say, see, I told you, I'm this, I'm that. But it's not about that. It's about, at the end of the day, he's gone through what I've gone through. He's gone through training camp for a fight with me. He put himself under pressure. He put his career on the line. And at the end of the day, he's come up short, and I feel you probably feel shit enough, so I don't know why you would want to kick him even more now. And I feel like the fact that he took the fight and he's fought a 50-50 fight, well, 60-40 fight to him, but 50-50-ish, I I think that there's credit because there's a lot of prospects who ain't doing that, and he's done it, and I don't think he should get punished for it. And at the end of the day, if it's a man's living, I don't think everyone should be like, right, that's it, you should retire now. Because what's he going to do? Go sign up with McDonald's and work there? No, he's not. He needs to make a living. He needs to make money. Don't be so harsh and put him back in the mix, make him fight someone else, and the show goes on.
Yeah, very well said, man. Very well said. And lastly, the last real question. I mean, on BoxRec's rankings, I know that we said they're not always so accurate, and their rankings sometimes are crazy, but you're ranked now as the 5th best light heavyweight in Britain. Now, I know that you'd probably say you believe you're the best in Britain, but you know how the rankings work. You know, you get ranked.
Everything works. You got to prove yourself.
Yeah, exactly. You get ranked by what you've done, by who you've beaten. Do you believe that your ranking's fair based on what you've done and what the 4 guys above you have done? Those 4 guys, by the way, 1 to 4, is Anthony Yarde, Josh Buatsi, Callum Johnson 3rd. I can't really understand that one, and Liam Conroy, who's fighting Buatsi's 4th.
Yeah, I don't get it. I don't say the rankings are accurate. You know, I know. We don't believe them rankings reflect on based on anything is right. But near enough about I believe I'm roughly around top 5. Not obviously I believe I'm the best, but in terms of proven achievements, I believe I'm somewhere around the mix of the top 5 now, and I think that's fair to say I'm around there. So I think the rankings ain't far off than myself.
Yeah.
In position.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, you're 5th there. I'd even go a bit further. I'd probably say top 3, and that's me being brutally honest.
Yeah, I think I should be top 3.
Yeah.
I'll be top 4 by next month. So, I'm getting to where I should really. I think top 3 I should definitely justify to be there. But obviously after Buatsi and Conroy fight, one goes down, one goes up, which puts me in the top 4 because one of them is obviously going to have to go behind me. Mm-hmm. But I think I should be top 3 by now, but it's all a matter of time. As I done the interview the other day, someone said, how do you feel that? I think, was it you? Or no, someone else said to me, how do I feel about not being mentioned as one of the best light heavyweights when they mentioned Callum Johnson, Joshua Buatsi, etc., etc. And I just said, like, I don't. It's like proving yourself, and in boxing, everything unravels. So your position will always be where it's meant to be eventually. Because boxing, you're gonna have to fight everyone eventually. So you'll everything will be unravelled, and the truth always comes out in the end. So I don't worry for now. I feel like I'll just keep working hard to keep proving myself, and eventually I'll get the spot. And I said that before the fight with Jake, and now as I said that, based on that conversation about me being mentioned as one of the best light heavyweights, now I'm mentioned as one of the best light heavyweights. So that's why I said it wasn't bothered me before the Jake fight, because I said that will come to fruition, and it has. And as again, I'll say, I'm moving forward again, it will happen again. I will just keep proving myself. They say if it doesn't happen, don't complain. That just means you didn't work hard enough last year.
That's a great mentality to have, and this has been real enjoyable speaking about all of this, Craig. Just to basically sign off, have you got any closing words just for the listeners? Any closing words at all to anybody in particular?
Just thank you everyone for supporting me. Everyone who comes out to the show, buys tickets, Dean Richards, who sits and supports me, and I just thank all of them. My family, I thank my sponsors as well, who get behind me, because obviously without all these people and networking and people supporting you, it can't happen. I thank everyone, Peter Sims, Darnell Smith, even the help from Tony Sims and everyone. I'm grateful for it. And all you media guys who give me a good outlook on things. And, you know, some people do snide things behind you and stuff, but all the media people give everyone a fair shake, and they're not trying to kick you and tarnish your image. I've just got to thank those people who do their job properly.
I just heard there. It sounded like the alarm in the gym when it signals the end of 3 minutes, but it's not that. It sounds like you burnt something in the kitchen. What are you trying to cook?
No. It was a gym. It was a gym alarm.
All right, Craig. Listen, my man, it's fantastic having you on the podcast once again. I'd like to thank you for your time. Congrats once again on the win. And we'll catch up with you again very soon.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, now it's time for part 2 on this week's show. Ayaz, take it away with the news.
Yes. So Shantan Cameron has left Cyclone's promotion.
Yeah, very sad situation. I mean, she posted about it on Instagram, and to be honest, it was very brave of her. You know, she came out and spoke about how she's being, in her opinion, mistreated and all the rest of it. She talked about a very poor training situation in which she doesn't even train there for the most part of the week. She trains elsewhere and then comes down to the McGuigan gym. I think it's just 2 days a week, which obviously isn't enough. She feels like she's being neglected, and I think she even used the word humiliated, which is a big word, you know. So it's sad. You know, we've heard a story before, obviously involving Carl Frampton, and it's sad. You know, that's probably the word I'm looking for. So yeah, brave stuff from Chantel to come out and, you know, and say something like that. But the main thing is, it's good to shake off these negative people. If they are indeed negative people and they're, you know, they're just a bad influence on her career, then it's good to get those kind of people out the way early on, you know, while you're still undefeated, while you've still got a fantastically bright future, which she does have. And she's a good fighter, you know. She's a good fighter. She really is. I like the way she is. She's, you know, pretty different to the rest of the girls. There's something about her, and you know, I've got a lot of respect for her for coming out and saying that, and I wish her nothing but the best. I think she's done a couple of sessions in Jamie Moore's gym, if I'm not mistaken, so that could be interesting. Another top trainer. So all the best to Chantel Cameron, and, you know, plaudits certainly for coming out and you know, addressing this as it is. You know, you can't have anything but respect for her for coming out and saying this.
Charlie Edwards will defend his WBC title against Angel Moreno on March the 23rd.
Yes, Charlie obviously did a little bit of pundit work on Saturday, and I saw him at the O2 Arena and we spoke about it. And yeah, he's well up for this fight. It's a guy that he sparred in the build-up to the John Real Casemiro fight. So yeah, I think they know each other quite well. For me, it's probably going to be a pretty comfortable win for Charlie. I'm guessing if he's sparred him before, then he knows what he's about. And I think since then, Charlie's come on leaps and bounds. Really, he's seriously grown up since that fight. Not just physically, but mentally and all the rest of it. And he's a much better fighter today than he was back then. He'll be the first to admit that. So for me, it's a nice, easy touch, and he deserves it. He really does. He's got the best belt in world boxing, and he's Britain's own WBC world champion, and he beat arguably the best fighter in that division. So yeah, he deserves a nice little touch here, and obviously we'll want to see that Yafai fight down the line. Whether or not that happens is a different story, but brilliant for him to be topping a bill at the Copper Box on the date that you said so. And it's a fantastic undercard it's shaping up to be. As we're seeing Lawrence Okoli versus Wadi Camacho. That's going to be a brilliant fight. That's for the British and Commonwealth cruiserweight titles. Obviously, the British with Okoli and the Commonwealth with Camacho. And there's another fight on the bill. Yep.
Which is Joshua Buatsi versus Liam Conroy for the vacant Lonsdale light heavyweight title.
Brilliant. So like I say, another great fight, a big step up there for Buatsi. You know, people are getting a little bit ahead of themselves with the rankings with Buatsi and stuff like that, saying he's like perhaps the best in the light heavyweight division in the UK. I think it's a little bit too soon to start saying that, but it's a step in the right direction. Conroy's obviously fought the likes of Miles Shinkwin, and a win over him will be a big name for Buatsi's record. And also we will see Andy Townend take on Lewis Ritson as well on that card. That is for Lewis Ritson's British lightweight title. He still holds that belt. Of course, it wasn't on the line when he fought Patera. That's quite obvious. But yeah, great card, that one at the Copper Box. And I love a Copper Box show. The only thing is it's so annoying because unless you're getting a cab right outside or a bus, you've got to walk for miles. And it's a bit annoying to get to, but I like the venue, and I'll certainly be there to support all the guys on that bill. So thoroughly looking forward to that one.
Frank Warren has won the purse bids for Josh Warrington versus Kid Galahad.
Yes, we'll be looking out for an announcement probably in the next sort of week or two, perhaps. I'm guessing, that's just a pure guess, but yeah, good fight. Kid Galahad finally gets his chance. He's been waiting forever for a chance. Obviously, he was kept out of the ring for quite a while, down to his own doings and his own problems outside of the ring. But yeah, a good fighter is Kid Galahad, and it's a great fight. It's a real tactical fight. It's going to be interesting to see how Galahad can deal with Warrington's relentless style, and also how Warrington can deal with a pure boxer. I think that Galahad's a much better boxer than Warrington, but it's just a case of, can Galahad keep it up and keep Warrington off of him? I think Warrington has got a good chin on him. I don't think Galahad's got that much snap in his shots. I think he's he hits hard enough to make you know about it, kind of thing. But interesting clash of styles, and honestly, that's a bit of a pick 'em fight once again, even though Galahad hasn't really got a world recognised win, if you like. Galahad is I don't want to say like one of the best kept secrets in boxing, because everyone knows who he is and how good he is, but he hasn't really had that opportunity to prove on the world stage and make a statement. And his biggest fights he has performed well in, and he's been looking good recently. He's got some form behind him, so very exciting fight, that one, and I'll be watching that one with a real interesting set of eyes.
Callum Johnson with Sean O'Monaghan in New York.
Yeah, that one's set for March 9th. Obviously, we saw Callum Johnson last time out take on Beterbiev. He dropped him, but he ended up getting stopped himself. And it was a real brave and valiant effort. And like I say, we really applauded him when the fight took place. When we were talking about it on the podcast after the fight, I said how, he went out there and fought like a Brit that wanted to win. He went and fought like a man challenging for a world title should fight like. He left it all in the ring, and he just wasn't good enough on the night. It was a big step up for him, but this is a step back. Shawnee Monahan, I remember I think he was 28-0 before he took his first loss, and he's kind of found his level a little bit. I think he was slightly overrated, so it's a good scalp for his record. To be honest, it's a good fight. It's not really a given, because Monahan's had the kind of bigger fights, even though he's lost them. He took on the likes of Sullivan Barrera and a few other guys, and he's probably got the better win, because still, you've got to admit it, Callum Johnson's best win was Frank Buglioni, who retired, about a year after that fight, so he was at the end of his tether pretty much. So yeah, he beat Frank Buglioni, it looked fantastic, but Buglioni was a British level fighter at the time, so I don't know, it's funny really to kind of say, well, yeah, he's going to walk through Monahan. There's no real proof of that, so it could be a good fight, but either way, I'm excited for it, and it's a fight that I welcome 100%.
Anthony Yarde will now face Travis Reeves.
Yeah, it's a bit of a shame we didn't get to see the Mehdi Amar fight, just for the simple reason that Amar went the distance with Alexander Gvozdyk, who obviously dethroned Stevenson in the fashion that he did. It was going to be good to see Anthony Yarde fair with Amar, because like I say, Amar went the distance with Gvozdyk, and could Anthony Yarde get him out of there and do something that a now reigning world champion couldn't do? Unfortunately, we're not going to get to find out, because Mehdi Amar's pulled out. It's a great shame, but in steps Travis Reeves. An American fighter from Baltimore with a record of 17-3 with 2 draws. He's only got 7 knockouts from his 17 wins, so he's not a big puncher. A lot of people say stuff like Anthony Yarde doesn't want to fight a puncher because perhaps he's hiding a glass chin. I don't know if that's the case. I don't think that is the case, but this is another situation where you think, wow, this guy is a non-puncher yet again. So, it is what it is. I'm not feeding into that rumour, but that's what some people say, and a lot of people like to hate on Anthony Yarde. He's a friend of this show and a friend of mine. But yeah, I don't really see this guy causing Anthony Yarde any problems. He's 38 years of age. He got knocked out in the 12th round by Karo Murat. I remember Karo Murat losing to Nathan Cleverly back in 2010. So he's been around the block. But other than that, his best win was probably last time out. He beat Lanel Bellows, a bit of a prospect. He had Bellows down twice and ended up winning unanimously over 10. Lanel Bellows, again, not really a proven fighter. I say a prospect as well. He's 33 years of age, but that's probably his standout win, to be honest. Not much else on his record. Yeah, it's not that impressive. I'm expecting Anthony Yarde to just go in there and walk straight through him. But again, that one is set for Leicester on Saturday the 23rd of February. So for those guys that are going to be switching between James DeGale and the Anthony Yarde card, if you don't want to watch this fight, then you can just keep it on the James DeGale bill, which does have a nice solid undercard. But yeah, it's a shame, but the show still goes on, and credit to the team for putting together another opponent that quickly. So Anthony Yarde does actually get a fight, because last time out, when his opponent pulled out a couple days before fight night, he was out in the States on the Wilder Fury undercard ready to fight, and then his opponent got pulled and they couldn't get anyone in time, so he just had to watch the boxing that night and not participate in it. So yeah, it is what it is. All the very best to Anthony Yarde.
Jordan Gill will face Emmanuel Dominguez on March the 2nd.
Yeah, that one going to be in Peterborough. It's a JD Next Gen card. The interesting thing about Jordan Gill's opponent here, Emmanuel Dominguez, 24-7 with 2 draws. Of his 7 losses, he's only been stopped once. And he's only 25 years of age, by the way. And he got stopped by Emmanuel Navarrete, the guy that just recently beat and dethroned Isaac Dogbe. So, yeah, a decent step up there for Jordan Gill. On the undercard of that, by the way, we're going to get to see Anthony Sims Jr. He's on that bill, along with a few other guys. But, looking forward to see Anthony Sims Jr. fighting on British soil. I think that's the second time he's done that. I think he was on another card before. But, yeah, he's got a real... a real fan base in the UK. I don't know how. I don't know why. But all these people he keeps retweeting on my timeline, all these UK guys, oh, you need to fight over here. I'm thinking, where did he make these fans from? But, it is what it is. All the best to him. I think he actually wants to come on the podcast at some point, so we'll perhaps look to that, depending on who he ends up fighting. But, yeah, that is going to be yet another good card, March the 2nd. So, yeah, on Sky Sports and DAZN.
And that's it for the news.
Okay, thank you very much, Ayaz. Right, let's get to the previewing now. This one's happening at the Hordern Pavilion in Sydney, Australia. This one is a bit of a strange one. It's actually up there for Strange Fight of the Week, which I think we should probably bring in as a new little award thing here and there. We used to do the funny name fighter, that kind of fizzled out. We should start doing Strange Fight of the Week, and this one certainly is the strange one. Son of former world champion Costa Tszyu, Tim Tszyu, 11-0. He's in a 12-round contest against Denton Vassell, Britain's very own, 25-5. That's a weird one there. Moving out now to Paris in France at the Dôme de Paris Palais des Sports. We're going to get to see Solomon Sissoko, former Olympian, the guy that beat Carlos Molina on points. I think it was last year. He's in a 10-rounder. I don't think he's fought since that Molina fight. He's 7-0. Like I say, he fights for the vacant French super welterweight title against Roman Garofalo, who has a record of 14-3. Moving out now to Belfast, Northern Ireland, United Kingdom at the Ulster Hall. We get to see here Paul Hyland Jr., 19-1. That one loss came to Lewis Ritson in devastating fashion, really. He takes on Miroslav Serban, who has a record of 10-1. That's a 10-rounder there. And also on that undercard, we get to see former world title challenger. He got knocked out obviously by Tevin Farmer. James Tennyson, 22-3. He's in a 10-rounder against 10-0 undefeated Gary Neal. That should be interesting. Also on the bill, we got Tommy McCarthy. I think he's still campaigning at was it cruiserweight? I think he fights at 12-1. He takes on Jiri Svacina, journeyman, 33 losses, just 13 wins. That's an 8-rounder there. Now moving out to the Dignity Health Sports Park in Carson, California, USA. I'm guessing this one's going to be on ITV4. I'd have to check that one, but I think it is going to be because it's another PBC card. We will see here Mario Barrios, friend of the show, a good prospect, 22-0. He's in a 10-rounder against Richard Zamora, the Mexican, 19-2. We also get to see Sharif Boguir, 32-1, a prospect still, by the way. 10 rounds of boxing against Javier Fortuna, 33-2 with 1 draw. That is a brilliant fight, by the way. Believe me, that is going to be a good fight. Hope that they show that one on the TV over here. Moving up the bill once again, Erickson Lubin, 19-1. That one loss, of course, came to was it Jamel or Jamal Charlo? One of the Charlos. He's in a 10-rounder against Ishe Smith, former world champion, friend of the show. Castro 29-10. Obviously, Ishe Smith has never been stopped, so that's going to be an interesting test there for Lubin, who's still a young guy. I think he's only 23 or 22 or 24, still a young guy, still has a real bright future, real interesting fight, that one. And topping the bill, Gervonta Davis 20-0. He takes on Hugo Ruiz 39-4. This one's for Gervonta's WBA World Super Featherweight title. Gervonta Davis, a man that we've been trying to get back on the show ever since he came on originally, a few years ago now. That was a interview I don't think I'll ever forget. That's a 12-round contest. The mad thing about it is everyone was breaking this news saying, well, Abner Mares has pulled out the fight and in steps Hugo Ruiz. Before it was official, it was still a rumour at the time. And I was saying, no way, that can't be true. Hugo Ruiz, he only fought like 11 days ago on the Pacquiao undercard, and I was right. And I thought, no, surely this is unsafe. They can't do that. I mean, I was actually saying, no, these people that are breaking the news, they've got it wrong. That's impossible. Well, it's actually going ahead, and I think it's pretty dangerous. Hugo Ruiz is now having to move up here to super feather from featherweight. I think it's a bit silly. I mean, he can punch, but that's about it. And I don't even know if he can punch for a super featherweight. So I'm expecting Gervonta Davis to make light work of him. But yeah, it is what it is. We've not even gone to the predictions on this fight. We're actually doing no predictions on this weekend's night of fights. There's nothing really worth putting a prediction on, unfortunately. And moving over to the final couple of bills now. This one happens at the Fantasy Springs Casino in Indio, California, USA. What do we have over here? We have Joseph Diaz 27-1. He's in a 10-rounder against Charles Huerta, who has a record of 20-5. That's a 10-rounder there. Diaz, obviously, former world title challenger ×2, I believe. Or was the second attempt when he came overweight. I think that could have been the case. Anyway, also on the bill for the WBA World Super Featherweight title, Alberto Mercado, 21-0. He defends his belt against Andrew Cancio, 19-4 with 2 draws. And topping the bill, Ray Vargas, the WBC World Super Bantamweight champion, 32-0. He's in a 12-rounder against Franklin Manzanilla, who has a record of 18-4. Like I say, a 12-rounder there. And moving out to the final bill to mention, this one I believe happens, I think it could be Sunday. I'm not too sure, but I'm guessing it's probably going to be on Box Nation. Again, I should really be checking this before saying it, so please forgive me on that one. But it's happening at the Save Mart Arena in Fresno, California, USA. It's a top-ranked show. It's going to be on ESPN in the States. What do we have on this bill here? We've got Joel Diaz Jr., 24-1. That one loss came to Regis Prograis. He's in an 8-rounder against Christian Rafael Correa, who's 28-7 with 2 draws. Still a good prospect, Joel Diaz, even though he got dropped about 4 times in 2 rounds. Look at Regis Prograis now, he's gone to the top of the world. Also on this bill, we've got Saul Neno Rodriguez, a man that really needs to get back active. He was caught in a real bad promotional contract with Mayweather Promotions, 22-0 with 1 draw. He's in a 10-rounder against Aelio Mesquita, who has a record of 17-3. Andy Vences, 21-0 with 1 draw. He's in a 10-rounder against Dardan Zenunaj, 14-5, former opponent of Tevin Farmer before he picked up a world title. Genesis Savania, 32-1. He gave a good account of himself, a real tough fight to Oscar Valdez. That's where his 1 loss came from. He's in a 10-rounder against Carlos Castro, 21-0. I don't know too much about Castro, but that should be a good fight. Also, Raimundo Beltran, his first fight back since losing his world title to Pedraza. I think it's his first fight back. 35-8 with 1 draw. I think he's still, unbelievably, still in a search for a visa. Or not a visa, I think it's a green card. He is in a 10-round contest against Hiroki Okada, 19-0. And the final fight to mention for the WBC World Super Lightweight title, the man that didn't get into the World Boxing Super Series, and perhaps he's laughing now if the whole thing does fall apart, Jose Carlos Ramirez, 23-0. He takes on Jose Zepeda, 30-1. That 1 loss came to Terry Flanagan, a real bizarre bizarre ending to that fight where he seemed to dislocate his shoulder and he couldn't continue, and then the fight ended and Terry Flanagan got the victory. That one was for the vacant WBO world title back then, so that's his one loss, and it was very questionable. Since then, I think Zepida's gone back to Mexico, had a couple of fights, and here he is against Jose Carlos Ramirez, so you'd have to favour Ramirez. He's in some good form. That's about it, though. We've tried to fly through that as quick as possible. We've brought you the review part of the show. We brought you the first guest. We brought you the news part. Ayaz did a great job there. We've just brought you the preview part, and just before we wrap up the show, the last thing to do is to welcome our second and final guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the former WBC Lightweight World Champion. It is, of course, Mr. Omar Figueroa. Omar, welcome back on the show, my friend.
Thank you for having me.
It's always a pleasure having you on. So, Omar, we last spoke back in February of last year. It was right before you were supposed to take on Adrian Broner. I guess that'll be a fight that, will always kind of sit with those big fights that never did happen. You haven't fought in the meantime. He has. He lost recently to Manny Pacquiao. Did you happen to watch that fight at all, Omar?
No.
How peed off were you, Omar, that it wasn't you to inflict that loss on Broner's record there that Pacquiao inflicted?
I mean, I there's really not much to say. I don't like to think back to those times because it's frustrating, and that's one thing. It's driving me mad. It's driving me up the wall that I haven't been able and healthy to fight. And even though I'm feeling great, I've made, a lot of important changes to my lifestyle and my livelihood in general that, I'm feeling better than ever. My mental state is better than ever. My physical state is better than ever. But, we put our bodies through so much when it comes to training camp. And it's just, it's not surprising that things happen, but it is disappointing.
And you've been out the ring, like I say, since July 2017. That win over Robert Guerrero that we spoke about on the show when you last came on. Now, bizarrely, Robert Guerrero retired, then unretired, and had a fight on the Wilder Fury undercard in the time that you've been absent. So tell me, Omar, you mentioned there it's a bit frustrating for you. What has kept you out the ring for this long?
It's I'm trying to get my body right, and I've been fighting for over 23 years now, so a lot has happened to my body in that time. I had an accident when I initially took that time off after 2015. I had a lot of family issues going on, and one thing that I stress a lot is being mentally ready for fights. And if my core, I feel is me, my kids, my family, my parents and stuff, if my core isn't right, then my mind isn't right and my body isn't right. And so I don't feel like anyone should fight in that kind of state of mind because it's, we don't play boxing. Boxing is a dangerous sport, and if you're not 100%, at least mentally, then a lot of things can go wrong. And it's life and death in there. It's not something to be taken lightly. You see Pritchard still struggling to get back. You saw Donis Stevenson recently go through something like that, and so it's not something to be taken lightly. And I don't care if people say that I'm scared, that I'm this, that I'm that. I got to make sure that I'm right physically and especially mentally first before I step in the ring, especially at the level of fighters that I'm facing now. And it's been frustrating. I mean, there's nothing. First off, I get paid to fight. So if I don't fight, I don't get paid. So I'm obviously not fighting on purpose. I want to get paid. I need to get paid. I have kids, I have family, I have bills to pay, and it's frustrating when I'm not able to get in the ring and fight and provide for my like I said, for my core, my family. And so I'm just trying to get things right outside the ring, so nothing goes wrong in the ring. And right now, everything seems to be good.
Well, I'm happy to hear that, and thank you for the answer there. Like I say, a lot of the people that listen sometimes are not quite sure of the ins and outs of what happens outside of the ring with a pro fighter. Now, you do finally have a date, Omar. You're set to take on John Molina Jr. on February 16th in LA. Not long to go now. I've asked you in the past about your other opponents, and you've told me that you really don't watch much boxing at all. Have you seen much of John Molina Jr. before?
No.
What are you expecting from him, Omar? I mean, he always shows up with a ton of heart. He's a big puncher. I remember when he fought Lucas Matisse, it was one of the best fights I've seen in a long, long time.
Yeah, I actually fought on the undercard as well. I fought on that card too. I didn't get to watch the fight. I think I was in the dressing room or something. I don't know what's going on, but I fought on that card too, and I heard it was a great fight. I think my coach Joel Diaz was training Matisse at the time. I don't remember. So I'm letting my coach handle the ins and outs of the strategy and all that. I'm just focused on making sure that the weight is good and that I'm in shape.
And talking of the weight, this is at welterweight, if I'm not mistaken?
No, it's at 140.
It's at 140. Okay. Is that where your future is at? You see, Umar, do you see yourself being at 140 for the foreseeable future?
At least for this fight. I mean, I don't know what the future holds, but I'm going to try and stay at 140 as long as possible. Hopefully, maybe win a title there, and then when the time is right, jump up to 147 and take part in the fiasco that is the welterweight division.
It truly is a fiasco. But yeah, 140 is a hot division at the moment. Obviously, the World Boxing Super Series taking place. It's kind of coming to an end now, if I'm not mistaken. But a good tournament that is, and of course there'll be a one rightful winner at the end of that, and you'll be right up there to take him on. How many times, Omar, are you looking at fighting in 2019, and what goals do you have for this year? And what's left of it? I know it's just started.
Yeah, well, we plan to get in the ring 3 times this year.
Okay.
And one of my main objectives is to, first off, provide for my kids and my family, make sure that we're all right mentally, that we're all good and a good point. And after that, like I said, boxing is not my priority. Well, right now it is because I have a fight, right? But outside of that, it's, I gotta make sure that I'm okay, because I have kids and I have to set a good example, and I have family and I gotta make sure that they're okay too. And, but it's my job, and right now it takes everything from me to make sure that I'm okay for the fight. But my goal for 2019 is to continue being happy, being satisfied with myself, being at peace, and to continue working hard.
And I want to talk about your brother Brandon. I mean, he's been extremely impressive lately. His win over Oscar Escandon back in October, and most recently in what I actually thought would be a real hard fight, he absolutely destroyed Moises Flores in 3 rounds. Proud brother moments for you, I'm sure.
Yeah, but you can't let him know that, That's something that my father always taught me, even though I was the best at it, or pretty much the best at everything I did, whether it was baseball, basketball, swimming, school. It was never good enough. But I tell my brother he does a good job. That's one thing that my dad never told me. And I tell him that I'm proud of him, but that he could always be better, and that he should always strive to be better. And I tell him I'm still not satisfied with the way he looks in the ring. I know he looked great against Flores, but he still has a lot of work to do if he wants to compete against some of the guys that are in his division, especially, even here with Coach Diaz. Diaz has Kaká, whom is from Uzbekistan or somewhere over there, and he has Diego de la Hoya too, and those guys are tough. So my brother needs to step it up if he wants to compete with those guys.
Tough love. But, that performance from him there, I was so shocked at his tactics to just go straight at Flores, but it really worked, and it was a big statement in my eyes. Any news on him for when he's next fighting again? I'm guessing, he won't be on the undercard, of course, but any news for him in the near future?
No, as far as I know, he's back in the gym, he's getting ready, but I don't know when or if he has a date already.
Okay. No problem. And finally, Omar, the last real question. Have you got anything that you want to tell our listeners or anyone in particular just before we let you go? That's about it.
No, just always, to my fans and to the supporters and to guys that are, listening to me or seeing me for the first time is just, thank you for support. I know it's been rough the last few years actually. But I'm just trying. I'm trying my best, and obviously, like I said, we get paid to fight, so it's not like I'm doing it. Not like I'm not fighting on purpose. This is my livelihood. This is how I feed my kids and my family and everything. and I'm just trying to be the best that I can be in the ring. And hopefully everything lines up and I'm able to perform and be close to my best. And finally, hopefully we'll see what I can truly do in the ring.
Okay, listen, Omar, I really appreciate you giving me some of your time this week. I cannot wait to see you back in a ring. I will be looking forward to that for sure. Best of luck for February 16th, and we'll catch up sometime after.
Yes, sir. Thank you. You have a great day.
Okay, and this wraps up episode 173 of the BoxHard Podcast. I've been your host, Joey Coastman. Ayaz Sumra has been Ayaz Sumra. A massive thank you to our two guests on this week's show, the new WBA Continental champion, Mr. Craig Spider Richards, and the undefeated former WBC Lightweight World champion, Omar Figueroa. We haven't mentioned the Prediction League at all this show, and that is because no one gained a point at all. I picked Kovalev to win by knockout and Cheeseman to win on points. The listeners picked Alvarez to win by KO and Cheeseman to win by KO, and Ayaz went with Garcia to win by knockout. Almost could have happened, to be honest, and Alvarez by knockout. So we're all big losers this week, and the scores stay the same. There's no more news to mention, but I do just want to give a real honourable mention to the reigning WBC Super Lightweight World Champion. We mentioned Jose Carlos Ramirez just before the Omar Figueroa interview. Obviously, Ramirez will be fighting this weekend against Zepeda, but the reason I want to give him a special mention is because this week he's actually visiting a place called the Community Cancer Institute in California. He'll be meeting with the patients and the staff so that he can actually hold an auction for his fight-worn gloves and various other fight night attire, and he'll be donating the entirety of the money raised to the institute, and he's also giving away 1,000 tickets to the patients of the institute and their families. What a beautiful, beautiful gesture. You just cannot help but respect a man that does something like that. What a true hero. What a fantastic thing to do. But that is about it from myself and Ayaz. Please, if you do get a chance, please leave us a review on iTunes. You do not understand how much we appreciate that. We'll be back next week with another big show as per usual. Until then, take care.